So speaking of Whirly, why don't I show you how I would load one? It's a good option. I'll hit the product browser key.
Browser.
I will turn to a product called Broken Whirly. Now, despite its name, don't worry, it's only broken in one small way, and we can deal with it. I'll show you.
Category. Abbey Road Modern Drama.
So I'm in the A's. This, by the way, the product browser goes in alphabetical order. I need a B. Let's turn until we hear B.
Balinese gap. Bells on. Blocks. Bow gap. Bull. Broken Whirly. Seat.
Oh.
Broken Whirly.
Found it. All right, let's click in. See how long it takes to load, and if it crashes.
Progress dialog.
Live demos? Yeah.
Preset.
Untitled.
Do it again.
Window.
All right,
Solo.
we've got a Whirly here.
Checkbox.
Lovely. It's not the one I want, so I'll press down the
Progress
preset
dialog.
down cursor, and it will load another one.
Tracks window. Solo. Checkbox.
That's a bit beefy.
Progress
Don't
dialog.
want that one either.
Untitled tracks window.
That's nice.
Solo. Checkbox.
Except it's got this kind of dirty sound at the end. I don't want that either.
Progress dialog. Untitled
you see-
tracks window. Solo. Checkbox.
Oh man, I could play a Christmas song, but I don't know the chords. But you know what? We're going to use this for our freaky demo today. So I have a thing set up at the minute, which is 100 beats a minute. So why don't I put down a few chords at 100 beats a minute?
One bar.
And
Mic
I
track.
don't even know what key I'm going to play in yet. Let's hear a metronome. All right then. Certainly not my best effort by miles.
1 bar 4.
But it's a
1
thing,
bar.
yeah?
2 bars 4 beats.
And it didn't even record
bars,
properly
4
anyway,
beats,
which is
9.
probably a good thing
3.
because my cycle seems to have been absolutely nowhere. So I also think I'd punched on for some reason.
One item.
Auto punch.
Unticked.
No,
Check.
it was on, it's now not. So that's good. In fact, I'm really glad it didn't record, or at least nothing meaningful. So I'm going to do it again.
9 bars 1 beat 1 tick.
Set the cycle endpoint.
1 bar 1 beat 1 tick.
Failure. All right, we now finally have a recording.
3
terrible.
beats 800.
So we've got that.
Tracks in track bass. Solo.
I wouldn't write home about it or anything, but it's there. So we've got that, and I need a bass now. I think we'll go for an acoustic bass. We'll use something from Scarby, because Scarby makes some of the best basses, and we're going to use my favorite bass, which is the Scarby Bass Amped. This is an acoustic bass from Native Instruments and Scarby, runs in contact like the Broken Whirly does, and it is just beautiful in a mix. So I'm going to turn this preset thing all the way down. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. Now, there's a factory side and a user side, right? We talk about that while I scroll for this bass. The factory side of the browser is all stuff that is first-party NKS ready. That means the manufacturer themselves made it this way.
Scarby pre-bass amped.
Oh, nearly there.
Scarby Scarby bass amped. Scarby bass amped. Pop preset. Scarby bass.
The
amped.
user side of the browser is stuff that was not made NKS by manufacturers, but by users. And there's a huge forum on Native Instruments. I think it's now 83 pages long. A lot of it contains user-made NKS presets, and there are some of the best in the business. For example, there are a ton of synths and plugins that I simply could not use without Komplete Kontrol. And that sounds like hyperbole, like, oh, I couldn't possibly, but it's not. Things like Omnisphere on the Mac, not accessible. Addictive Drums, not accessible. All the Korg stuff, Triton, M1, Legacy Cell, Wavestation, you just can't use unless you want to fight with the VOCR just to change a single preset. Not really. The only thing you could do in Logic would be to go into the View menu, choose Controls, and play with parameters. Yeah, okay, great. But what about when I want to change preset? So with Komplete Kontrol in the way, as sort of my helper, there's a lot of synths I would never have bought if Komplete Kontrol wasn't there to help me. So shall we put down this junky bass line? And I've been doing it all wrong, by the way. I should have been doing it from the keyboard, because the whole point of this integration is that I can do all that from the keyboard. There's stop buttons and play buttons and record buttons around the keyboard. There's even a metronome toggle right here. So once I've recorded this, I'm going to talk about that while we're moving on. So I set up 2 other blank tracks and 1 track that we've already set the Whirly up on.
1 bar 1 beat 1 tick.
Hit the record on the keyboard. Okay, thank you very much. I didn't do it again. I'm so used to not using it. You know, it's funny. The only time I really use all the keyboard controls is actually when I'm on stage. When I'm at home, I always have the Bluetooth keyboard on my knee. I'm a terrible, terrible person. I'm a terrible person. And then
Track 3, drums
I pull the track control down for the keyboard, and then I'm going to load up an addictive drums kit to just round it all off. And then we can mess with this whirly and talk about the parameters outside of the browser, because these knobs do all kinds of weird and wacky things when you're not in the browser. We know what they do in the browser, but this gives me an excuse to go over to the user side. So I hit the browser. And along the top of the screen on the Mark II keyboards, which I'm using, there are 8 soft buttons. We call them F1 to F8, a bit like you did on the motifs. And F4 happens to be user or factory. So I want user. And then I want product addictive drums.
Abbey Road, Vintage,
so you know what I'm doing.
Actions, Alara Volume, Analog, Arcane, Art Odyssey.
I missed it.
Alara Volume, Addictive Drums 2.
There it is. I also want to use the bank knob in this case, which is why I did this on purpose.
Bank, all banks.
Which is the 3rd knob in the list now.
AD to explore. Black Velvet.
I want to use Black Velvet. Now I want my favorite kit in Black Velvet. So F7 turns on and off the user favorites. Now let me just quickly scroll from top to bottom without favorites on. You can see all the choices.
Black Velvet.
Lot of choice.
Black Velvet 228 points.
Let me turn this
preset,
on.
Black Velvet. Preset. Black
Far less now.
Black Velvet.
And
clean.
there is the clean preset that I actually want. And I also want to adjust the sound of it.
Octave -1.
So I've gone down an octave because I like to play my drums 2nd octave on the keyboard. You hear there's kind of reverb in this? Well, if I use the, let's go along and count these knobs here.
Main mix, Ohio LVL.
Oh, sorry.
Main
volume.
OLVL.
Overhead volume.
Room LVL.
Room level.
Bus LVL.
Bus level.
Sends, FX1 LVL.
And then FX1. So I know for a fact that
main mix, room LVL.
The room level is something I want to turn down. If I turn it up, now it's far away. And turn it down, right down. Also, let's turn up this overhead level a bit. Now I've got a bit of a nicer sound, but this bass drum's a bit weak. So let me go over to the second lot of parameters in this, because there's, as I say, more than 8 parameters on the kit. And I'm going to press the page right key, which is under the preset down key.
Mixer 1.
And it says Mixer 1. And the first knob in Mixer 1...
Mixer 1, kick.
...is kick. If I turn it down...
Kick.
Now you're just hearing it through the overhead mics. Turn it up. You see how easy and how fast it is to control this from the keyboard. There's no interacting and clicking or getting lost in the table. And by the way, that's not denigrating Logic. Logic is my baby, all right? But I'm just saying that when you want that tactility and that speed, you cannot beat a control surface. And essentially, Komplete Kontrol is the control surface for MIDI users of control surfaces. So long as, of course, your product is using NKS. If it's not, well, not so much. Now, we hope in the future that things that are not will be able to be automatically auto-mapped, which would be fantastic. But, you know, I don't have an ETA for that. I don't even know if it's going to happen or if it's just a pipe dream of mine or something I dreamt up in a horrible night. But, you know, we'd love to see that. But you see, that kind of functionality is fast. Changing a couple of parameters is speedy. So let's get this really crappy drum beat down, and then I want to talk about the rest of the keyboard buttons.
1 bar, 1 beat, 1 tick.
So now I'm going to press the record button on the keyboard and the recording has stopped. And while it's stopped, I can press the metronome button, which is above the record button.
Metronome off.
And it says metronome off, and it's right on the keyboard, and you can hear it, it's clicky.
Metronome on. Metronome off.
It's lovely. So this kind of control over the sound is great. There are also mute and solo buttons next to the screen. So if I want to hear this drum line, I can do that. Mute it. Great. So by pushing the track button up to the top,
Track 2, track 1, keys, group.
let's solo this Rhodes thing, whirly thing.
Levels broken.
And let's see what we can do by just adjusting some random knobs, because I don't remember what this plugin does, and that's okay. It's a good thing. So I'm just going to be as intrigued as you are with this madness.
Broken.
This Broken, by the way, the reason it's called Broken Whirly, to explain, is another Sonic Control product. And when they recorded this Whirly, they found that it had a broken speaker, but they also had a line out. So they recorded the nice line out, but also the broken speaker, so that if you wanted it broken, you really could have it broken. And that's why that sound was like that. If I turn up the broken,
Broken.
turn it down, nice.
Line out.
Line out, that's clean.
Speaker. Speaker.
And there's a speaker. That's all right too.
Tremolo. Depth. Amp EG and Filter EG. Level. Speaker. Amp EG and Pan. HPF.
So by the way, I'm now
noise
pressing
tremolo.
the page right keys, and we're going to see what else we've got.
Amp EG and Filter EG.
Amp EG and Filt.
Pan. HPF. Noise and tremolo.
There's noise and pad and all sorts. I'm looking to see if there are any effects I can turn down on here.
Options. Noise and key off. Auto and auto pan.
Auto 1, auto pan,
Chorus and phaser.
chorus and
Delay and
phaser.
reverb.
Delay, that's what I want.
Delay. Mix.
Can I turn the delay mix down? Second knob. It's more reasonable. If I unmute it, go down to the bass track, because the bass track is all hot and loud now.
Track 2, bass group.
Bass. Middle. Treble.
So we can turn up and down the
Bass.
middle and the bass and things. And there's a bass with no bass. Solo that.
Bass.
Sounds really weak.
Middle.
Middle. Oh dear. Terrible bass mix.
Bass.
Turn the bass on the bass up slightly.
Middle.
All right, getting there. It's a bit more like it now. I still wouldn't write home about it, but it is better than it was. So that is a little bit about how Complete Control can work. And it's very good for live. Really good for live stuff. I mean, the speed at which I'm doing that, unparalleled. And that's why I like this.